Indigenous children were studied in a bizarre program that never passed ethics review. Christian school in Saskatoon is the subject of abuse allegations. Violence in for-profit shelters in St. John's keeps many people out of their rooms. Argentina's fascist drift is good news for Canadian mining companies, and Chiquita Banana is charged for their role in funding a far-right paramilitary in Colombia. Good morning. It's Wednesday, June 12th. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. We start this morning with a stunning investigation from Jeff Leo at the CBC. Jeff has uncovered a questionable program that targeted Indigenous youth in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, to try and address their trauma by using a dangerous and questionable practice that tried to manipulate their brainwaves. It was called Brain School, and the kids who signed up were given an all-expenses-paid trip to Victoria, where they agreed to be part of something called the Prince Albert School Study. The program promised to boost creativity by 50%, IQ by nearly 12 points, and release stress and anxiety. Oh, and bring happiness and joy. Who wouldn't want that? China Gallerno is featured in the piece, and she talks about how, when she was 12, she heard about the promises of the program and begged her family to let her go. China and her mother, Alma Stonestand, signed up. Alma was weary that there must have been a catch, but she didn't see one, and with the pressure of a motivated 12-year-old, she agreed to go. Stonestand is a member of the James Smith Cree Nation. Oh, and have I mentioned when this all happened? Well, they went in 2014. The program was developed by an American named James Hart. He had been featured on CNN, and Tony Robbins was a fan. 60 children from PA participated in the study. And the school board, the Saskatchewan Rivers Public School Division, supported the project. They were told that the project was given ethics approval by the University of Regina. The company BioCybernaut first learned about PA from a teacher who had done training with the company that she had found it helpful. The study that China and her mother participated, all in, cost $15,000 per week per student and was all paid for by Alan Markin. Markin is a billionaire who was an oil executive and part owner of the Calgary Flames because, of course, Markin had taken the training himself and he liked it. He thought it improved his memory. And so he used his nonprofit, something called the Pure North Synergy Foundation, to fund this program. And I should say, Pure North, one, doesn't exist anymore, and two, Synergy is spelled S''energy. I mean, it's terribly billionaire cringe. Well, you might be able to guess what happened next. It was horrific. The participants had electrodes attached to their heads and led into a small dark room. Then they were forced to sit there for more than half the day listening to music that Gallerno called, quote-unquote, scary trumpets. The tactics triggered panic attacks in some participants, and some had their trauma triggered such that they broke down. It turned out that the study never did get that ethics approval from the University of Regina. Now, there's much more to this investigation that you should look up if you're curious. You should read it, really. It's a stunning example of how colonization still runs rampant in this country and how much rich people are able to get away with what they do. But I'll just end with this note, that the principal investigator on this study was someone named Carrie Bourassa. Bourassa was, at the time, a professor at the First Nations University of Canada. She would eventually be found out to have no provable Indigenous ancestry at all. We'll stay in Saskatchewan for another story that sounds like it's from the 1940s, but it's not. The trial of John Olubobokin. He was the director of the Christian Center Academy and is on trial for 9 counts of assault with a weapon. The school has since changed its name to Legacy Christian Academy. Olubobokin is also being sued for $25 million by former students. One of the students testified that the students weren't taught by actual teachers, and they'd be beaten with a paddle regularly. It was so regular that this one student used to wear several pairs of underwear to absorb the abuse. His brother also testified and said that sometimes the abusers would miss and hit their backs and legs, and sometimes the weapon would break over the child's body. One affiliated freak church sold paddles to parents for home use. That church is called Mile 2 Church. The brothers said that after Olubobokan hit him, students were ordered to pray over him to remove the quote-unquote gay demons. The school and the church still operate. Next to St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, where the Canadian Press's Sarah Smelly is reporting that increasing violence within that city's shelter system is becoming a crisis. And what's worse, shelters are owned by private landlords who have no reason to actually address the rising violence. Smelly talks with Joan Dunphy, who said that her daughter lived in fear in one of the downtown shelters. Raina Dove ended up dying when another resident stabbed her in the abdomen. In a victim impact statement, Dunphy cited Dove's diaries that demonstrated how hard she tried to get social workers to move her somewhere safe. Private landlords received more than $2.7 million to operate their shelters in 2023, an amount of money that jumped 55% over 2022. The private owners operate 7 shelters with 79 beds. Oh, and have I mentioned that the shelters are operated for profit? The article goes through a litany of issues: no locks on doors, people crying themselves to sleep in fear of what might happen, sketchy shelter owners who have no business of being in that business, and that residents don't get enough food that shelter owners are supposed to provide to them. People who've asked to be moved are often denied. Now to news about Canada's mining companies and their operations in Argentina. The media co-op's Owen Schalk is reporting that Argentina's new fascist leader, Javier Milei, is planning to cut back on environmental protection regulations to help the mining industry make even more money. He will also be cutting how much tax and other payments they must make to the Argentinian government to operate there. Rob McEwen, the head of the company McEwen Copper, said that Milei is like Prince Charming, who's woken up the mining industry with a kiss. The Canadian Mining Journal has similarly identified the financial boon that Argentina's mining industry is in for under Milei. Back in March, the Argentinian government had an Argentina Day at the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada conference in Toronto. Argentina offers the West a non-Chinese option for mining critical minerals. As the U.S. strengthens its relationship with Argentina, it's not too surprising to see that Canada is too. And finally to Florida, where Chiquita Banana has been ordered to pay $38.3 million to 16 people whose family were killed in Colombia by a right-wing paramilitary group funded by Chiquita Banana. It's the first time that the company has been held responsible for this violence, despite many other lawsuits against it. Lawyer Marco Simons said this, quote, "This verdict sends a powerful message to corporations everywhere. Profiting from human rights abuses will not go unpunished. These families, victimized by armed groups and corporations, asserted their power and prevailed in the judicial process," unquote. From 1997 to 2004, Chiquita Banana paid almost $2 million to the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia. They killed thousands of people. In 2007, the company admitted to funding the group and was convicted of giving money to a foreign terrorist organization. Those are your headlines for Wednesday, June 12th. I'm Nora. You're listening to this podcast at sandynora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.